We are holding our electoral reform rally. We are not protesting. Just come to Unity Pharmacy. Everybody will support. Come. I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you so much for being with us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and well done for the job you do, sir.
All right, so we'll come to you shortly. Let's just give an update on some of the points we will be looking at tonight. Later on today, I would, of course, look at the issue of insecurity after our conversation with Peter Akah. And we're looking at our Senate Eye Summit after Borno Benue attacks. Our talking points will focus on escalating insecurity, understanding the latest attack, and Senate's proposed National Security Summit, symbolic or substantive. We'll also look at path forward, rethinking national security strategy. And of course, our guest will be joining us later, Vincent Onyekwelu. He's a national security strategist and, of course, a media professional, governance expert, and published author and teacher. We'll be right back shortly to begin our conversation with Mr. Peter Akah. To stay with us. Glad to have you back with us as we explore the 2027 election stakes, looking at diplomacy, power, and of course, reform. And in 2023, only 27% of Nigerians voted a democratic crisis. Can Nigeria rebuild trust for 2027? So let's dive into our first talking point. We'll start with the president's Rome visit, diplomatic triumph or domestic disconnect. Now, on May 18th, President Tinubu attended Pope Leo's inauguration in Rome, invited by Cardinal Pietro Parolin. It's his sixth foreign trip of 2025, which is aimed at boosting Nigeria's ties with the Vatican. Now, a striking moment while he was in Rome, Tinubu met Labour Party's Peter Obi and ex-governor Kayode Fayemi, sharing laughter. And of course, Tinubu said, according to his spokesperson, Bayo Nanuga, that I'm the head of the Nigerian delegation, prompting Obi's agreement despite 2023's rivalry. But with inflation at 33.2%, of course, that figure has dropped, and youth unemployment at 42%. Our critics are questioning the timing. So let's bring in our guest, Peter Akah. Thank you so much. He joins us live from Lagos, Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
All right, so let's go to our question. What is your take on the visit and this Tinubu Obi moment? It's been raising a lot of reactions so far. So let's start with your thoughts on that.
I think we are paying too much attention to non-essentials. To Nigerians who meet anywhere in the world, especially when you're not at home, should fraternize. And I do not think politics is enmity. It's not bitterness. So the President Tinubu is the president. Obi is a private individual who went to the same function as the happens to be in the same function. I think exchanging of pleasantries is just normal, except we want to begin to score cheap political points with photo ops. Other than that, we should be focusing on the crux of the matter. President Tinubu traveled to Rome, and they put out a picture that he met with the Vatican Secretary of State. That picture, as at now, has been taken down on X because out not to be true. The person whom the president was pictured with wasn't the Secretary of State, that is Cardinal Petro.
All right, Peter. Now, just to go back to something that Bayo Naniga said regarding the visit, he said Tinubu's Rome visit, meeting with Obi and Fayemi shows Nigeria's unity and global respect. So let me come back to you, Peter. The Tinubu-Obi encounter sparked buzz. So how do you view it for 2027? I know you began to touch on it, but let's take your response.
Okay, so the beginning of your question.
View this for 2027, because if you look back, Peter Obi and of politics. So how should youths, because you're an advocate for youths, how should they view this?
Yes, they should view it as politics with ethics, politics without bitterness or acrimony. I mean, if Obi doesn't go to say hello to the president, as against what? As against snubbing or walking away from the president. And I even just watched a video where Obi stated clearly that he's not fighting Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's fighting hunger, he's fighting bad governance, he's fighting insecurity, he's fighting out of school children, and so on and so forth, our poor health sector. So I think that we can disagree but not be disagreeable. We are human beings, we should be civil, and any politics that brings bitterness should be completely, rejected. But having said that, the question will now be, what exactly are the gains that the Tinubu administration have gotten from the 6 foreign trips that they have gone out? Remember, he just came back from France on working visit where he went to and access his reforms, planning a world press conference to unveil achievements for 2 years. So we have had this globe trotting and junketing around the globe with no attendant result and effect on the people of Nigeria. With 2 years into the renewed hope agenda, I think that is what Nigerians should be scrutinizing. 2 years later, are we better off? Is the country better off? Is security better off? Is power better off? So once we talk about those indices, we will know that photo opportunities between Obi and Tinubu do not matter so much like the welfare of Nigerians.
All right. Now, Peter, let's talk about how youth trust beyond symbolic gestures like what we saw. Of course, there's so many supporters of Peter Obi who might be disappointed, and of course, but how do you think leaders can gain the trust of youth? Because you look at what's happening with the Labour Party. That political party seems to be deteriorating in terms of its impact. So how can leaders build youth trust?
How can leaders do what? I'm sorry, my connection is terrible.
Okay, let me take it again. I said, how can leaders build youth trust?
Leadership is influence. And then again, the problem with Nigerian today is not the fact that there are no people who love the country, but the fact that Nigerians do not trust the institutions that should work. Under normal circumstances, people are not expected to put trust in individuals or in persons, because the best of man is man, and no nation can be built on the integrity of a person. And that is why democracy always talks about having strong institutions as against strong men. So it is more of a conversation of Nigerian. able to hold leaders and individuals accountable so that peradventure the leaders astray, there is a system that holds everybody accountable and everybody is held under equal standards before the law. So that is the aspect I will be looking at it from. Are Nigerians willing to muster the courage to come together and fix our institutions such that we can now build trust in the electoral system, in the judicial system, in the law enforcement system? Because as it is today, there is outright trust deficit, and it is reflected in all facets of government, whether politics, whether health, whether financial, or whatever you can call it.
All right, Peter, I just hope that youths don't just give up on the political system as we are seeing today. But let's move on with our second talking point, talking about power plays and APC's defection surge versus Atiku's coalition bid. Now, the election is sparking political maneuvers. The APC has gained defectors like Delta's Governor Sheriff Oboweri, ex-PDP running mate Ifeanyi Okowa, and 3 Kebbi senators, cutting opposition senators down to 39. I mean, Peter, you were at the National Assembly, I think, last week or so. I mean, it is just quite, interesting what we are seeing playing out in Nigerian politics. But let's move on. You look at Atiku Abubakar's May 16th plan for an APC-PDP Labour Party coalition aims to challenge Tinubu, but defections like Nasir El-Rufai's to the PDP shows cracks. But let's just take a little soundbite of what the former vice president said.
Yes, we are having a coalition. So all the major political parties are involved in this coalition. The APC, the PDP, the Labour, all of us are involved. So that is the only way to go to face such a very, very incompetent and inefficient government.
It's no longer news. That's
all right, open invitation there for, all political parties to come in. So, Peter, let's come back to you. What does this power play mean for you? He says the coalition will save Nigeria from Tinubu's failures. It's about people, not parties. What are your thoughts?
Mano, let me be honest with you. This kind of system where we have come to the conclusion that in order for you to win elections, you must come to a coalition. And if you notice, it has been the former vice president who has been repeating this rhetoric, we're in a coalition, we're in a coalition. The Labour Party candidate has not come out with a statement. The APC, nobody has come out. But the question will be, why do we need the coalition? I agree that you need to come together, but I hope we do not make the mistake of 2014, where people came together to take power for the sake of power. And more than about 10 years down the line, there is no attendant result to show for the reason why former Vice President Atiku Abubakar was part of the group that formed the APC that today Nigerians are suffering from, and he is trying to form another coalition to take out. In 2019, he picked Peter Obi as his running mate. What stopped him from supporting Peter Obi in 2023 to be the PDP presidential flag bearer? So when you look at all these optics and you begin to wonder, what exactly are the motives behind running for public office? Are you running for the good of the country or to fulfill a political dream and desire to be called Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces? As it is today, Nigeria is in dire strait. APC is an existential threat to Nigeria's democracy. And the logical thing would be that any well-meaning politician or people should come together to rescue Nigeria. But my position will always be that Nigerians must insert themselves into the conversation. 2027 must be between the political elite and class that have crumbled this nation, that have destroyed the society, that have entrenched injustice, corruption, that have entrenched nepotism and despotism, that have brought hunger, starvation, despondency, and desperation amongst their own states and regions. So what Nigerians must do is to ensure that we build an electoral system where the people become the centerpiece and the focus, and not just political actors or gladiators who want to take power for the sake of power. Nigerians must wake up and put themselves in this conversation.
Now, Peter, talk.
Sorry, I've lost your audio. I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
It's
I
been
have lost
worked
your
on.
sound.
Definitely, I hope you can. Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
thank God you can. So I was talking about how these moves affect youth trust in 2027, looking at the fact that some
Yes.
of these politicians are the same persons we keep seeing year in, year out. Do you
Yeah.
fear that, I mean, we could see people just move away from the system entirely, especially in the lights of these defections? So what does that do? What would you say to youths who are, they feel disenfranchised, so to speak?
Okay, so the youths are left with about two dire choices. It is either we sit back, decide to do nothing, and suffer the consequences of whatever will be the outcome in 2027. Or we decide to come together, organize, mobilize ourselves, and push for a change in 2027. Because what is happening in Nigeria today is you are seeing everybody moving to the APC. So if you are seeing a coming together of the persons who are destroying the country, you saw the situation in Delta State. A former governor who had a question of more than 1.3 trillion misappropriation of funds to add allegations to answer with the EFCC moved to the APC. And just as the former national chairman said, when you cross over to our side, your sins are forgiven. What exactly is making people to defect to the ruling party? Is it because they believe in the integrity of INEC, or they have hopes in a criminal structure that will manipulate the electoral system? Why should the defection of one person affect an entire result in a state? Do Nigerians vote, okay, because the governor Sheriff Oboriwori went to APC, so every Deltan will automatically defect? No. The arrogance and the guarantee is in the electoral system that can be rigged. So the youth right now do not need to be despondent or do not need to become lethargic. We need to rise up to the occasion, because the risk is that it can only get worse. The bad thing about Nigeria is that there is no worst case scenario, because things are this bad does not mean it cannot get worse. If we decide to keep quiet, we continue to suffer, we continue to die, they continue to enslave the people. So we must begin to wake up and say, if these people are putting everything together to ensure they retain power in 2027, we too must come together and see how we can rescue ourselves. So that is the option before us. It is not to lose faith, it is not to lose trust, it is to realize that it is a battle for our survival, and we must unite and fight for ourselves.
All right, so Peter, are you suggesting that a new party be formed? Because when you look at the political parties that are merging, according to Atiku, even some APC members are working behind the scenes. They don't want to publicly say that they are not supporting the president. So are you calling for a new party? How will it work? Do you think that Atiku's coalition overcomes these defections?
Let's see where that coalition will lead. Mono, do you know that as it is today, it is almost impossible to register a new political party? What you are seeing playing in Nigeria today is a complete state capture and trying an attempt to turn Nigeria into a one-party state. The so-called PDP or opposition parties today are almost not a viable platform for anybody to run. The PDP is in court. The Labour Party has leadership crisis. So nobody is even sure platform we are coming together under. If you go to the SDP, you can think of the issues that have been party before now. You remember the just recently expanded former governor's meeting of the PDP. The former governor of Rivers State and current minister for FCT was in attendance. Is Minister Wike in PDP or in APC? So when you talk about forming political parties, as it is today now, let me be honest with you, It is as difficult as whatever you can think of due to what is going on with INEC. And that is why you can see all of us when I keep clamoring for this issue of electoral reform and fixing INEC. So whether they can find a political party that is neutral, that has not been infiltrated, is another question up for discussion. But to be honest with you, a lot is going on with INEC that Nigerians must fix.
Now, I want us to answer that question. And let me ask you, how can youths disrupt these power plays for 2027? Because you recall the last symposium, the conference, you had with Nigeria Coalition of Civil Societies for pushing for electoral reform.
Yeah.
You recall legal luminary
Yes.
Femi Lanas talked about citizens taking over these political platforms. Do you think that is possible?
Yeah.
Can Nigerian youths, take over the leadership of either APC, PDP, or Labour Party? So how do you think it will work? Because we need Nigeria to get better. What's the pathway?
It is an overwhelming yes. Mono, how many Nigerians are in this country today? Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people by our estimation. How many persons are in the political class? Calculate the entire executive, legislative arm of government, 36 state governors, state house of assembly members. So are we saying that the people in power are greater than the power of the people? The missing link with Nigerians is that we have decided to be too divided across ethnic, religious lines. And it continues to weather down our strength to coming together and making concrete demands. But let me tell you that if a majority of Nigerians come together and say enough, it doesn't matter how long oppression may have landed or lasted, enough will be enough. What is the simple thing? We must go to the National Assembly. There is nothing that will happen as reform that will happen outside the National Assembly. So the difference is, or the question, are you ready to get the reforms that you need? It will be difficult. It will not come easy, but it is always impossible until it is done. So if we want to talk about 2027, we are not ruled by kings. We are not a military regime, so to say. Everything we want to achieve must be through a democratic process of electoral
Okay.
process. We
Yeah.
must pay attention to reforming it. So if you say, can we do anything? Yes. The question is, are we ready to put this conversation, take the bull by the horn, and be the change that we are talking about?
Now, talking about taking the bull by the horn, let's move to our next talking point. I mean, you are leading a movement demanding change. And of course, we've been following your work on social media, the hashtag Fix INEC campaign. And you told me earlier today that this is day 11 as of May 19. And you're pushing for mandatory electronic transmission of results after 2023's 27% voter turnout and 40% Beavers upload failures. That's reporting coming in from Yaga Africa. And with 10,000 petition signatures and Senator Ireti's King Igbe's May 10th, I think May 10th, that was when she endorsed what you're doing. So can you talk to us, why is this movement critical?
It is critical because it is a movement that will determine the survival of Nigeria. It is the most important thing that anybody should talk about in Nigeria today. Look, democracy is a system of government where power comes from the people. Nigeria, for more than 60 years, is struggling to put the cart before the horse. There can be no democracy without free, fair, credible, and peaceful elections, because that is the first system of accountability. What is the deterrence for politicians who behave badly? When you know that no matter how horrible you can be with leadership, you can rig yourself back into power. And let me ask you the simple question, Mono. The INEC chairman and INEC received 313 billion in 2023 to conduct that elections. And they stated that about 150 something billion was for electronic technology. On the day of the election, it failed, but passed for the Senate elections. And the INEC chairman said there was a glitch. Mono, have you had any answers as to what caused the glitch? Do we know how to prevent further glitches moving forward? So for 2 years, The 10th National Assembly have not been able to investigate what exactly caused the glitch and why we should not have further glitches. That should tell you all you need to know about the fight for electoral reform. The hypocrisy and mischief. And recently, the House of Reps is debating a bill to punish persons who refuse to vote in Nigeria. So I will ask you again, which is easier? To pass a law to make the process seamless and people should trust the process and go and vote, than to criminalize or punish people who fail to vote. If the process was seamless and free and fair and people trusted it, why will people not vote? So, Mona, my brother, every Nigerian who means well for this country, if you like, stop that. Say you are fighting insecurity, hunger, inflation. If you fail to fix elections and the same incompetent leaders rig themselves back to power, you have another 4 years of lamentation. So let's calculate and know how many years we are ready to spend in protesting, in lamentation, and in complaining, and how many lives will be lost to this kind of misgovernance.
I mean, well said there, Peter. You just reminded me of a post I saw on social media today talking about the JAMB exam glitch. And, you know, the federal government has said that those affected will have to take the exam again. But coming to INEC glitch, we're not seeing anything like that. But let's move on, Peter. What are some of the challenges that you have encountered as a result of this fight that you are taking on? Because we've seen a lot of clamp down on, voices who are trying to, speak up to power, not in any sort of violent way, but to demand change and more action on the part of government to deliver on its promises. Have you had any experiences so far?
Have I had any?
Have you had any situation, opposition, so to speak, as a result of this movement that you're taking on?
Of course. There will always be elements of opposition. But one thing I want to make clear is that there is nothing that is worth doing that comes easy. Nigeria is bigger than every one of us, and Nigeria is worth my time. And I am persuaded to know that as citizen of this country, it is my right to work for the welfare and the betterment of my nation. It is not a crime. So no matter what comes our way, we are determined to see that we contribute our quota to building this society, because we all cannot run away. We have encountered people who will send you threats, who will send you messages, but the truth of the matter is, even the person who is opposing you is also a victim of this government. Have you heard recently that one of the APC ward leaders in Ondo State was kidnapped, and after the ransom was paid, he was still killed? Did the kidnappers ask him what party card he was carrying? Are people who are in the APC buying fuel cheaper? Is the inflation around APC states different from the ones in PDP states? Every Nigerian is a victim of bad leadership. And everybody must realize that it is our duty to rescue ourselves. If not, you are just waiting for your turn for Nigeria to happen to you, God forbid. So my only challenge now is in ensuring Nigerians become mobilized enough by our collective pain and suffering. Because there is adequate frustration in Nigeria and anger. The question is, where are we bringing our anger? So that is my duty now, to ensure that we channel this our pain and anger positively to get positive change that will affect and better our lives altogether. So that is my simple assignment. That is my simple duty. God sparing our lives, we know that Nigeria will be better because of you and I and the efforts that we put.
Amen. Now, Peter, as we wind down on the conversation, what are reforms that are essential for because, I mean, your proposal, there are quite a number of them, but what are the key ones that are essential?
Yeah. Mono, ensuring that electoral process from INEC voter registration, having a transparent INEC voter register, to ensuring that the system is there is less human interference as much as possible. Because whether you appoint a new INEC chairman, you can even replace this one who you think is bad with one who is worse. You are seeing the confirmation of the state resident electoral commissioners. that were recently appointed and confirmed by President Tinubu. What we are demanding is a transparent process. Let electronic transmission of results be mandatory. Let us close the loopholes of the 2022 Electoral Act and ensure that Nigerians are not left. As much as we INEC server, let it be protected. Let Nigerians know that in real time we can see delivery of results. Nigeria is not the first. Elections just took place in Ghana, a smaller country by size. Can Nigeria not hold a free, fair, and credible elections for more than 60 years or for 25 years after our fourth republic? Let us be honest. 93 million people voted already. Less than 30 million voted. We must be honest with ourselves. Let us unbundle that process and put it in the hands of competent persons and then plug loopholes for judicial calisthenics, where judiciary will now use technicalities and technicalities. We must fix it. That is our demand.
Through 2026, I can see from reports that Senator Ireti Kingigbe, the FCT senator, is on board with you. Can you name some other names of representatives at the National Assembly that have come on board with you and have promised to help you get through with this mandate?
Anyway, when if we want to use the statement or the phrase come on board, it is, a public declaration. We called out Senator Ireti specifically because she had made recent comments about the youths. And then again, she's a member of the Senate Committee on Electoral Reform. But she's not alone. The chairman of the committee is Senator Simon Lalong, there is Senator Sharafaddin Ali, and with other senators. So she was in a good position to at least take the petition and table it before the Senate Committee. There are other petitions on electoral reforms there. And for 2 years, that same committee, which she is a part of, have been meeting and holding workshops and seminars and have not been able to come up with any meaningful electoral reform. And there is a timeline. So we are not taking the words of any one person for it. We are believing that Nigerians can come together and put the necessary pressure to get what we want. Because leaving it to the hands of politicians can go either ways. So these are the senators in that committee. Senator Ireti is part of them. She has said she stands for electoral reform. We hold her by her word and will continue to see how watching her actions and that of her other colleagues. So that is our simple, hope and forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter, once again, for being with us. I mean, we've explored the stakes for the 2027 election, looking at Tinubu's Rome visit with smiles alongside Peter Obi's sparking debate, and also APC's defection surge clashing with Atiku's coalition hopes, and a youth-led reform movement shaking up the democracy. So, Peter, what are your final thoughts before we let you go?
My final thoughts are that Nigeria is worth our time. And there is no great nation that was built overnight. If we all come together, the day that the people in power become afraid of the power of the people, Nigeria will begin to make progress. But for as long as we, the people, are afraid of the persons in power, then we have decided to remain a captured people. Our destiny is in our hands. Let's work and fight for ourselves and the destiny of future of this nation we all love. And I know you also love.
Of course, I love Nigeria. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Peter Akah. Many thanks for being with us on the show today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, you're still on to politics now. We'll take a breather. When we come back, we will move to insecurity. Look at the Senate eyeing a summit after Benue attacks. And of course, security expert Vincent will be speaking with us shortly. Do stay with us. What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues? The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. the instability of the system. Join LM 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
The golden age of America begins right now. I will very simply put America first.
Watch Politics Now on LM 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on LN 24/7.
Many thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is still Politics Now, and of course we are looking at the issue of insecurity right there. Yeah, Senate I Summit after Borno Benue attacks, and of course not leaving out Plateau State, Nigeria. Let's take you through our talking points once again. Of course, we're looking at escalating insecurity, understanding the latest attacks, and Senate's proposed National Security Summit, symbolic or substantive. And path forward, rethinking national security strategy. So let's get right to it. The escalating insecurity gripping our nation with fresh attacks in Borno and Benue states underscores the urgency of the situation. The Senate has proposed a National Security Summit to address this wave of violence, but it is a genuine step towards solutions or just another symbolic gesture. We'll unpack the latest developments, examining the Senate's plan and explore what it will take to rethink Nigeria's national security. We'll, of course, update you on the recent attacks in Borno, Benue, and, of course, Plateau State. And, of course, our guest is with us to discuss the situation. But before we get to that, you know, last week, the United Kingdom decried the security situation in Nigeria, describing it as worrisome. And briefing journalists in Abuja, the High Commissioner to Nigeria, Richard Montgomery, attributed the situation to spillovers from Sudan and Niger. Montgomery said the UK government was collaborating with the Office of the National Security Advisor, as well as through investments in insecurity infrastructure to reduce it. So let's start by understanding the scope of what's been reported so far in the month of May. We're looking at the escalating insecurity, understanding the latest attacks. That's our first talking point. So the past few weeks, we've painted a kind of grim picture of Nigeria's insecurity. Let's roll up some graphics for you. Starting in Borno State, in May 2025, Borno State, Nigeria experienced violent attacks attributed to Boko Haram and its splinter group, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP. Here are the key incidents reported on May 7, 2025. Boko Haram terrorists attacked the Izge community in Gwoza local government area around 1 a.m., killing an army captain and a soldier. On May 12th, Boko Haram attacked 153 Task Force Battalion base in Mate local government area, dislodging troops and killing an undetermined number of soldiers. The attacks burned armored tanks and seized ammunition. This followed a similar attacks weeks earlier in Malam Fatori, where 22 soldiers, including a commander, were killed. Now, in the month of May for Benue State, Nigeria, there were a series of deadly attacks primarily attributed to suspected armed herdsmen and military groups targeting farming communities. So here are the graphics of what went down in Benue State. May to 10th, at least 23 people were killed in coordinated attacks across 4 local government areas, that is Guma, Logo, Ukum, and Kwande. And in Ukum, 8 farmers were killed in Juta town, and that was on May 10th. And then May 12th, reports confirmed 23 deaths with the Red Cross and local officials, noting the attacks occurred in 4 villages, and the violence was linked to ongoing tensions between nomadic herders, often Fulani herdsmen, and of course Christian farmers excavating by land disputes, and of course climate pressures. Then on the 13th of May, an additional attack was reported with at least 7 people killed and 5 abducted in Benue and Plateau states, highlighting the escalating insecurity in the region. So let's go to Plateau State and Nigeria for the month of May to give you a recap of the timeline of some of the killings. As you can see there, total number of deaths 10, cattle rustling and farm destruction seems to be the key primary cause. We also look at livestock losses, over 100 cattle killed and several people injured, the exact number not specified at the timing of this reporting. And of course, communities affected include Dayan, Danshido, Dawat, Werenkam. These are just some we could just put up to just paint a picture of some of the attacks that we've seen in Nigeria. And of course, the resurgence of violence in Borno State is attributed to Boko Haram and ISWAP's adoption of sophisticated tactics, including armed drones and roadside explosives. You go to Benue State, the farmer-heather conflict remains fueled by competition over land and resources, exacerbated by ethnic and religious tensions. These attacks are not isolated, but a part of a broader wave of insecurity, with banditry in the northwest and kidnappings nationwide claiming thousands of lives annually. Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Vincent. Thank you so much for being with us on the show.
Right, that's okay.
All right, so let's start with your thoughts on the comments made by the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, alluding persistent insecurity to spillovers from border countries like Niger, Sudan. And I mean, this should not be taken lightly because the UK has a lot of intelligence. So what are your thoughts?
With all due respect to the opinion of the UK High Commissioner to Nigeria, obviously in his position, in his portfolio, he has a lot of resources when it comes to intelligence. He has a lot of resources that comes to his table on a daily and weekly and monthly basis. So obviously he has some deep intelligence. However, I would have thought for a serious sovereign nation who is very serious about the basic constitutional needs of your people, which is the welfare, the lives and the property of your people. If I were to be the NSA of Nigeria, yes, I'm going to take the opinions, the intelligence from the UK High Commissioner to Nigeria serious. However, I'm going to work more on the internal intelligence that are so obvious, that we have got so much resources and intelligence that most of the attacks we experience in Nigeria are coming from headers from outside Nigeria. That is something, information that is very basic to Nigerians. And if headers from outside Nigeria, just as the UK High Commissioner has also said, is one of our problems, then why is our borders still so porous? So basically, whatever the High Commissioner to the UK is saying, it's not nuclear physics to us. We've heard this repeatedly, that our borders are porous, that we have undocumented people that come into Nigeria to commit crimes. And many schools of thought will believe that they have formed themselves into an organized criminal cartel, an organized criminal gang. So we are actually facing transnational criminal gangs, transnational organized criminal gangs. And there are ways you fight transnational organized criminal gangs. It's not rocket science on how to fight them. First, you secure your national borders. From every nook and cranny, secure national borders. If you stop people from coming to your borders carelessly, it's easier for you to contain those that are already in.
All right, so Vincent, we will come to the issue of the proposed summit. So let's talk about the report, highlighting the use of advanced tactics like drones by Boko Haram and ISWAP. How are these groups evolving and what does this mean for Nigeria's military responses?
See, I will talk to you as a professional, practical professional, not just a theoretical professional. Basically, when you start talking about drones, IEDs, being used by terrorist organizations against a national army. Basically, I will say to you, how did these drones enter Nigerian airspace? How did it enter our territorial integrity? It must have passed through our national borders. And that takes us back to what I was suggesting initially, that we ought to secure our national borders to stop this kind of drones coming, to stop this kind of IEDs from coming, to stop the kind of trainers or technicians or experts that train Boko Haram people or Israel on how to detonate IEDs, how to develop them, how to build them, how to design them. And it comes out to national borders. So the idea of IEDs and drones being used by Boko Haram, it can also be a propaganda because, terrorists work with propaganda. They try to make you to believe that they are bigger than what they are. So we shouldn't be banking on this issue of them having drones. How many drones do they have? 10? 15? It's peanuts. If our military are serious, committed, resourced, empowered, they will knock them out straight up. But are they committed? Are they empowered? Are they dedicated? That's the question. So let's not keep flying about their drones. How many of them? Probably few drones block the national borders, and they will not have the engineering capacity to rebuild, to renew the parts that are damaged, to bring in brand new drones, block the borders, whether it's sea border, land border, air border, block the borders. If you don't have the parts to repair damaged drones, they cannot fly. If you don't have the borders to bring in new drones, they cannot fly. If you don't have the borders to bring in the engineers and the experts to train them on how to build, on how to repair, it will not fly. It comes down to dedication to secure our national borders.
In reoccurring ahead of farmer clashes. So why has this conflict persisted for decades, and what structural issues are preventing resolution?
You will understand that the epicenter of Boko Haram in Nigeria was originally from that region of Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, and from Adamawa to Benue State is only divided by 2 states, Taraba, Bank. You are in Benue State. So from that axis, then look at the other axis again, where there's a potential a super camp, because in terrorism we talk about super camp, medium camps, and mini camps. Now there's a potential super camp also around Niger State. If you look at what has been happening in Niger State in the past 3 to 5 years to 7 years, you can agree there's a strong presence of terrorists in Niger State. And obviously, they have influence around states surrounding Niger State. And such states are Kwara State. Such states are Nasarawa State, even our FCT, Abuja. And from that particular epicenter, you can enter Nasarawa, and Nasarawa takes you straight to Benue, takes you straight to Plateau State. And these are regions that you would have thought that the kind of checkpoints that we from the southeast experience, you would have thought that there would be more checkpoints in that part of the country to curtail the movement of terrorists from that Borno, Yobe, Adamawa epicenter on the right to that Niger, Kwara, Nasarawa epicenter to the left. But you'll be surprised that you don't really see many checkpoints in those areas. And the military, the police that are working in those areas do not have the technical, tactical, and technological backup to do their work. They rely on manual searches. What can you see? If somebody hides 20 AK-47s underneath of their vehicle, how can their physical eye see it? So it's not about checkpoints, it's about having the right tactics, the right technology to systematically search vehicles without holding up road users carelessly or even collecting bribes, collecting money from road users. That's why they failed the whole job. Thank you.
Okay. We'll examine the Senate's response now to this crisis, a proposed National Security Summit. Is it a step towards solutions or just political theater? Now, on May 6th, the Nigerian Senate resolved to hold a two-day National Security Summit to address the escalating insecurity across the country. The decision followed a motion that was sponsored by Senator Jimoh Ibrahim of APC Ondo South, co-sponsored by Senators Titus Zam, APC Benue North, and Webonyi Onyeka Peter Ebonyi North, and Osita Ungu from Enugu West. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, tasked the Senate leader, Opeyemi Bamidele, with forming an ad hoc committee to organize a summit, emphasizing the need to meet Nigerians' expectations during these challenging times. Vincent, let's have a listen to what the Senate President said.
No country will allow a citizen to understand security by living with insecurity. We must eradicate insecurity.
All right. Now, however, the proposal has sparked debate. The federal government, through the Minister of Defense, Muhammadu Badaru, said that this downplayed the summit's relevance, arguing that a new military strategy is more critical. So let's have a listen to that.
So that is it, because they don't have more equipment than us. We have much more. We have more sophisticated equipment, and that is why the successes that I've just mentioned. On the summit, yes, strategy is far more important than summit. But summit will give you some inputs for the strategy. When you hold a summit, you hear people, they talk, we take what they said, and we go back to design or renew our strategy, and then the Chief of Defense Staff give operational order based on the strategy developed. So what the National Assembly is trying to do maybe is to bring people together to discuss the issue of security. You hear a lot. I visited most of the past defense ministers. I visited most of the past service chiefs.
All right, Vincent, let's get your thoughts. Given the history of unimplemented recommendations from past summits, what will make this one different, and what specific outcomes should we look for?
Listen. When you do a national security summit, which may take 1 day, which may take 2 days, you would expect all the stakeholders, the security experts, the military, the police, the DSS, the customs, the administrators, the presidency, to have a say. What stops Boko Haram sympathizers? What stops terrorist financiers? What stops terrorist funders? What stops terrorist sleeping cells to attend such national security summits? When they are attending, they will listen to all you are saying. They will record all your suggestions. They understand their dimensions because they are professionals. Most of these guys fight for a living. They go to nation to fight for a living, and they are funded by somebody or some groups. So if they're going to listen to such discussions during the National Security Summit, what's the need? I would have thought that there should be a closed-door discussions with the government of Benue State, government of Plateau State. How can we assist you? Government of Borno State, how can we help you? Government of Kwara State, Niger State, how can we support you? When you have such a closed-door discussions, whatever you discuss, the chances of it becoming exposed is only going to come from inside. If the government of Nigeria or government of these states that are targeted decides to leak this information to the terrorists, be it so. But if they want to fight and win this battle, they will keep it secret to their heart. So why don't we have discussions that are going to be covert, underground, and then tell the public what the public needs to know, rather than having a national security summit where we're going to waste millions of naira that we can use to imbibe on technology, on tactics, to support the state, to support the victims of these terrorist attacks in Plateau, Benue, Borno. Why going to throw it down the drain and have a public discussion? It's more like saying you want to have a family meeting with your family, and you choose to do it in the market space, it's no longer a meeting. But if you want to have a serious meeting, you do it indoors with your family members.
Okay. Now, the federal government seems to prioritize strategy over summit, but looking at ethnic religious undertones to insecurity, is it fair to still say a summit should not hold? What are your thoughts?
We do not need a, a press day. We don't need a media jamboree to fight our internal national security. Coming from a country that takes national security serious, where I serve meritoriously, you don't need a media jamboree to see the Senate President arriving at National Security Summit, the NSA arriving, the Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Air Staff, Chief of Defense Staff, the Police IGP, Mr. President. We don't need a media jamboree. Listen, bro, lives are being lost. These are lives of innocent Nigerians lost for no good reason. You don't need to organize a national security summit to understand the root cause. We have an idea of the root cause. The root cause are terrorists. The root cause are foreign headers. Don't you have an idea of the root cause? So where are you beating around the
All right. Because of our time, we'll have to wind down the conversation, Vincent. It's been a great time having you with us on the show tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. All right. So experts suggest a multi-pronged strategy strengthening intelligence and fostering community-led peace building and addressing root causes like poverty and land disputes. Now, regional cooperation through the Multinational Joint Task Force and disarmament initiatives could curb cross-border threats. But without accountability for military abuses and inclusive governance, Nigeria risks perpetuating continuous circle, and the government is pushing for a total war approach with more intelligence and community involvement. And I feel these are just some of the things that we need to continue to push to ensure that we deal with the issue of insecurity. So let's go to my take on the lingering insecurity in Nigeria, and Tinubu must deliver. Nigeria's security crisis rages on with 10 killed in Plateau's Riom, 4 in Benue Gwa East, and an army captain slain in Borno's Giwa in May 2025. Bandits, Boko Haram, and herders exploit forest, feeling violence. President Tinubu's National Forest Guard initiative, approved in May, plans 130,000 armed guards to secure these hideouts. It could curb attacks and create jobs, but only if recruitment is transparent and coordinated. Nigerians in Plateau, Borno, and Benue need action now, and President Tinubu must deliver. Now, earlier on the show, we looked at the stakes for the 2027 election, and here are my thoughts. Nigeria's 2027 test. Now, Nigeria's 2027 election is already in motion, but trust in democracy hangs by a thread after 2023's 27% voter turnout. President Tinubu's Rome visit, where he shared smiles with rival Peter Obi, signals unity abroad, yet 33.2% inflation and 42% youth unemployment demand focus at home. Meanwhile, the APC's defection surge, swallowing opposition figures like Delta's governor, clashes with Atiku's coalition bid. These power plays risk stifling the competition that democracy needs. The youth, however, offer hope. A hashtag fix INEC campaign's push for electronic result transmission, backed by 10,000 signatures, is a bold demand for accountability. But sustaining momentum against entrenched interest through 2026 will be tough. So my take, 2027 is Nigeria's chance to rebuild faith in its future. Leaders must move beyond gestures, and youths must keep pushing or risk another democratic letdown. The 2027 election will test Nigeria's soul. Will we rise? Well, join us next week as we take on some other top issues in Nigeria's politics. Once again, I am Morno Balagubo. God bless Nigeria.